James Heappey.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to welcome the devolution of business rates as proposed in today's bill. And so in that sense, I support it very enthusiastically. I've no doubt that the retention of business rates will encourage local councils to be more entrepreneurial and will rejuvenate economic development departments in city and county halls. In the long-term future, I am sure that the new focus on local economic development and the government's industrial strategy, with its focus on growth in all parts of the UK, will deliver self-sustaining local authorities delivering high-quality public services in all parts of the UK. But we are not there yet. In fact, we're nowhere near. The funding per capita to predominantly rural local authorities is significantly below those in predominantly urban authority areas. Why? Well, because that's just the way that it's always been. There is no rhyme or reason to it. It's simply a legacy of old funding formulas, and so rural areas have continued to be at a disadvantage. That's iniquitous, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it needed to be corrected. Instead, however, under the settlement announced, the gap will widen further. Last year, rural MPs on both sides of the House won a concession for extra money within the Rural Services Delivery Grant that effectively ensured that last year's cuts were shared equally between urban and rural areas. But that was just a sticking plaster that did not change the settlement for this year or the two that follow. I remain, however, ever hopeful that, like last year, some extra money could be found to provide some extra RSDG to ensure that the cuts, again, fall fairly and rural residents are not left at a disadvantage. But I'm clear that that would just be another sticking plaster. And what local authorities need more than anything, Madam Deputy Speaker, is certainty. Certainty to borrow, certainty to invest, and to budget in the long term so that local public services are on a more stable footing. That means that the current review into local government funding needs to be accelerated, and it needs to be accelerated urgently. And furthermore, Madam Deputy Speaker, we should be bold in our ambition for the scale of that review. A full review of local government funding is needed that fully recognises the costs of rurality, the costs of an ageing population, and all of the other costs that are faced by local authorities around the country, not just in rural areas but urban, the cost of communities that are predominantly having English as a second language, the costs of pockets of high deprivation, both in urban and rural areas. All of those costs need to be understood, and a new funding formula for local government put into place that is entirely transparent and entirely fair on all of our constituents, whether we represent rural or urban constituencies. In Somerset, we are already paying extra on our council tax to protect ourselves from flooding. We will pay extra on our council tax for adult social care, and our cost of living is rising fast because fuel costs are going up. And that impacts rural areas far more than it does urban. In return, Somerset residents are getting their bins collected less often, the libraries are open less, youth clubs have lost their funding, and bus routes are being lost. Somerset County Council have done a great job running into this headwind, not least because they do so whilst carrying the enormous debts left by the Lib Dems when they were last in charge at County Hall. That £20 million a year Lib Dem interest and debt repayment is a very useful reminder for why Somerset is better off under Conservative control.
Yeah, where are they?
But we should be clear, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the alchemy of the Conservative administration at County Hall in Taunton, just like in county halls across the country, cannot go on forever. There has to be a review that not only delivers the devolution of business rates, but in the short and medium term ensures that we continue to redistribute money from London and the South East out into the rest of the UK, so that local authorities in rural areas and in the regions of the United Kingdom can be given a financial settlement that allows them to continue to deliver high-quality local public services, but crucially, with the certainty that is required so that they can borrow, plan and budget for the long term. I agree with the principle of this bill. I agree absolutely with the devolution of business rates to local authorities. I think that the opportunity for local authorities to be more entrepreneurial, to invest in their economic development departments and to reap that return by growing the number of businesses that are in their patches that are paying rates, which allows them to do even more in the way of public services, is a great idea. It is clearly the long-term future. But we should make no mistake. That system will not work immediately on its introduction, and so what is needed in the interim is a full review of local government funding so that our county councils, our district councils and councils everywhere else in the UK can operate with some certainty, and we don't have to have this year-by-year cut to local public services that annoys our constituents and gives us such full mailbags.
Yeah.